You want a war? You're gonna get one.
Hey yo Chico, Reliving the War episode 259, the 23rd of October 2000. Raw's in Hartford, Connecticut tonight while Nitro's in Little Rock, Arkansas. WCW's returned from Australia and they're now gearing up for Halloween Havoc. The pay-per-view takes place later in the week in the MGM Grand Garden, and as fate would have it, it's the last WCW Halloween Havoc pay-per-view to ever be produced. The WWF, meanwhile, are just coming off their No Mercy 2000 pay-per-view, and if you want to get all caught up, make sure you watch my review video. We have a new WWF Champion, ladies and gents. It's true, it's true. This week's jam-up guys are Paul and Jeremy. The boys attended Raw in Quebec a few weeks ago, and not only did they have some killer seats, they also had the best shirts in the entire arena. Paul also promised to send me two of the most awesome trading cards I've ever seen in my life, so I'm looking forward to getting those in the old Wrestling Bios P.O. box. Thank you very much, boys, and I hope you enjoy Reliving the War. Raw opened up on a pretty somber note. The WWF announced that Yokozuna had passed away, and their video tribute was narrated by Vince McMahon. Yokozuna's cousin and terrible driver Rikishi is going to open up Raw with a promo, while Nitro presents the perfect event versus the Bozo brothers. So I feel inclined to get the Nitro stuff out of the way first. Stasiak and Palumbo are still not on the same page. Coach Nash gets in the ring, he tells the boys to shake hands before their match, and trust me fellas, it's so over for the perfect event if they get beaten by Ronald and Donald Harris. I wouldn't show my face again. Kevin goes on commentary, he says he's in a bad mood today, and yeah, he legitimately was in bad form, but more on that in a moment. Heavy D makes easy work of Stasiak, so Palumbo comes in to smack Heavy Diarumpus with a super kick. Ronald McDonald takes a springboard dropkick too for good measure, and Chuck shows off more sick skills by taking out both Harris brothers all on his own. That knob jockey Shawn Stasiak refuses to tag in, something that makes Kevin Nash even more angry, and Shawn leaves his partner all alone to take the H-bomb. The perfect event take a loss, and Kevin Nash gets in the ring to take care of business. Shawn Stasiak, the silly sausage, squares up to Kev, and the big man looks like he's gonna rip Shawn's head off. Palumbo tries to calm Kev down, eventually everyone gets out of the ring, and Kev goes back to the commentary table where he says Shawn Stasiak's gonna learn some tough love. When Mark Madden questions what this tough love entails, Kev says it's the kind you won't see on vivid video. Very good. A bit later on, Kev says he set up a little test for Shawn tonight on Nitro, and he then takes shots at WCW by saying he won't give up on Shawn, unlike the way World Championship Wrestling gives up on people. He says, let those who have not sinned cast the first stone, and he then reveals that WCW served Scott Hall his termination papers 2 days before the bad guy's birthday. Kev says the Outsiders gimmick isn't to work, he warns WCW that the Outsiders will run again, and he then leaves the interview looking pretty annoyed. So what does Rikishi have to say after what happened at No Mercy? Well, he reveals that Stone Cold's in jail trying to negotiate bail. Steve committed a crime last night, but on top of that, No Mercy presented another travesty, and that travesty was The Rock losing the WWF Championship to Kurt Angle. Rikishi says he'll work with The Rock to get that championship back. He wants Rock to come out for a quick word, so like clockwork, the crowd erupts when the People's Champ makes his way down to the ring. Rikishi apologizes for getting involved in Rock's WWF title match. Rock says he wants nothing to do with this apology and he wants nothing to do with Rikishi. And when Rikishi tries to make amends again, Rock makes it very clear he doesn't want nor need his cousin's help. Rikishi says Rock's beginning to hurt his feelings. The Rock says Big Keith can wipe his 400-pound ass with his feelings, but Rikishi won't give up. He says, in a serious tone, that he'll always be there for Rock whether Rock likes it or not. So Rock says he's got to do what he's got to do. He delivers a rock bottom to his cousin while hoping this makes Rikishi understand what he's trying to say, but something tells me the message still didn't get through. A bit later on, Michael Cole wonders why Rikishi's still hanging around. Rikishi tells Michael to shut his stupid mouth because this is family business and he's going to be here all night long. Mick Foley's very excited for our next match on Raw. It's a bra and panties match between Lita and Trish. Mick can't understand why Lita would put herself in such a match, but she's doing so just so she can get her hands on Trish Stratus. So Mick Foley bars TNA from ringside. No, he bars Test and Albert from ringside, and he makes it official. Trish vs Lita is up next on Raw, while Nitro presents a Booker T promo. Booker's defending his world belt against Big Papa Pump this Sunday at Halloween Havoc, and he says no matter what WCW throws at him, Booker T just keeps going. Booker comes out and he performs each and every week for us fans. Thanks, Booker. And even though Booker questions why he stays in different hotels every night and why he lives out of a suitcase, he does it for the roar of the crowd every time he makes his entrance. This is all well and good, Book, but my god, is this the most generic pandering bullshit I've heard all week. Booker respects Big Papa Pump, but as a man, Scotty Steiner sucks. Steiner's going to have to kill Booker to take the championship away from him. Yeah, this is a little better in terms of the promo content, but it kinda goes 2 steps back when Book says he'll have all the fans in his corner at Halloween Havoc. As it turns out, a large portion of fans end up booing Booker at the pay-per-view. Big Papa Pump comes out with Nadeja. He says he listened to Booker talking jive and he doesn't understand a word he's saying. That's pretty rich coming from Scotty Steiner. And Scott cuts deep when he says Booker's line, "Save the drama for your mama," comes from Booker not knowing how much his mom's welfare check's gonna be. And as for don't hate the player, hate the game, it's because Booker's mom's on the game and she works for $1.95 an hour. My god. Steiner guarantees to knock Booker T out at Halloween Havoc. Booker says, "Let's do it right now." The two collide on the entranceway and Jeff Jarrett shows up to help Scott. When the two get in the ring, the lights begin to flash. Sting runs in to get his hands on Jarrett, and then we get a big old brawl featuring a fair portion of the WCW locker room. Steiner's not happy that Mike Awesome went after him, so after a break, Scott says,
"I'm gonna hit you right your ass so far hard, you're gonna wish you were in the 70s.
"I'm gonna hit your rectra ass so far hard, you're gonna wish you were in the 70s. Steiner loses it here. He challenges Awesome while telling Mike to write down all his feelings because Scott wants to know what it's like when a lamb goes to slaughter. He then starts making sheep noises.
Bah, come to slaughter. Bah, come on, Austin.
And not gonna lie, folks, I'm terrified for Mike Awesome's well-being tonight. Over on Raw, our bra and panties match gets underway, and it takes no time at all for the tops to come off. Showing that they want to do much more than your typical catfight nonsense, we see a suplex from Trish and Lita counters a bulldog with a back suplex. Lita also delivers a moonsault before winning the match, and Jerry Lawler acts like he's never saw a scantily clad woman before. The Right to Censor aren't happy with this filth. The WWF should be ashamed with what they've presented in the ring, and so should the women who just took part in the match. These women don't belong in the WWF, but there is one woman who does belong, and that woman is the newest member of the Right to Censor, Ivory. Ivory comes out and she absolutely looks the part for this role. She looks like that stern teacher you had back at school. Ivory says she enjoys being a woman. The women of the WWF have been led to believe that short skirts and skimpy bras are what men want to see, and that, lads, is totally unacceptable. Real men want to see real women. They want to see the beauty within. Trish and Lita have stripped off their clothing and their pride, and so Ivory's here to speak up for all women of America. Ivory says no more, this has to end, and with that the Right to Censor gets a great new member that can add even more storyline beats to the faction. I was just mentioning how the RTC was kinda going around in circles, but Ivory getting added, in my opinion, is a good move. Michael Cole wonders how the Conquistadores can defend their tag team titles against Edge and Christian tonight, implying that E&C are actually the current champs. Again, I've no idea why you people think Edge and Christian are actually the Conquistadores, because look, there's even more proof right there. Edge is high-fiving Doss, so tell me, how do they do this? Mike Sanders, meanwhile, says Ernest Miller doesn't have a chance in hell come Halloween Havoc, and to prove it, Above Average has put together a little 3-round kickboxing exhibition for Nitro tonight. So that exhibition's coming up next, while Raw presents Chris Benoit versus the Road Dogg. Sanders comes to the ring. He says Miller may be a karate champion, but Mike comes from Bad Street, USA, last house on the right. Not sure why Michael Hayes was getting a shout out here, or if it was just a lack of creativity. But here comes the Young Dragons to get this exhibition started. First up is Jamie San. Sanders pours some sort of liquid on his gloves and it makes Jamie go temporarily blind. So see you later, Jamie San. He gets knocked out. Yang also gets blinded. Stevie Ray says he can smell that liquid all the way at the commentary table. Yang gets sent out of the ring, and as for Kaz Hayashi, well, he gets his head drilled into the corner and the top turnbuckle was covered in this liquid. So Sanders wins this little exhibition match, and he came prepared for Leia Meow. Mike wore a cup and he knew Leia would try to kick him in the balls, but before Mike can shove his cup in Leia's face, Miss Jones provides a distraction. This in turn allows Ernest Miller to appear, and he hits Mike with a feline. Above average gets knocked out. At Halloween Havoc, we'll find out which of these men are going to serve as WCW's one and only commissioner moving forward, but don't get your hopes up. It's another kickboxing match and it's absolutely dreadful. Chris Benoit says success is engaged in the WWF based on wrestling ability, the perfect example being Triple H. Triple H may have won at No Mercy, but he didn't beat Chris Benoit. Triple H needed help from his wife, and that means Triple H didn't prove Benoit wrong. Chris is going to make an example out of Road Dogg. Things are going to be a lot different from this point on for Chris Benoit, and so Chris's new plan was to basically fight fire with fire. The match was a typical back and forth affair with the audience being in Road Dogg's corner. Benoit missed his diving headbutt, which allowed Road Dogg to try his dancey punch, but then we learned that Chris Benoit has some backup in the form of his old horseman and radical teammate Dean Malenko. Dean helps Benoit secure a win, Road Dogg taps out to the crossface, and the two old friends embrace in the ring. I guess this gives Dean something to do, and we can only hope it plays out a little better than the whole Radicals thing. The Radicals started off well, but it quickly fizzled out into nothing. Chronic, who are scheduled to face Bill Goldberg at Halloween Havoc, explained that their recent attacks in WCW are not supposed to be personal. Adam says Chronic are paid mercenaries, they do what they do for money, but Goldberg made things personal, and now Chronic must defeat Goldberg to keep their reputation intact. Again, we've got Brian Clark getting some promo time, but it mounts up to about 10 seconds. He wants 3 Count to come out to the ring because apparently Evan Courageous and company have paid Chronic to do a job. And that job is to stand in the ring and provide security while 3 Count play their whole song library. Nitro is going to get turned into a full-blown 3 Count concert, and Chronic decide the money's just not worth it. So 3 Count get beaten up, Shannon Moore takes the meltdown, Sugar Shane takes the high times. I'm not sure if this is really the best way to build up Chronic versus Goldberg, but there you have it. Triple H cuts a backstage promo next on Raw while the MIA make fun of Team Canada next on Nitro. So, we've had some notable parodies during the Monday Night War, including the NWO ripping off the Four Horsemen and D-Generation X pretending to be the Nation. No one, and I mean no one, talks about the MIA dressing up like Team Canada, and that's because it's embarrassingly bad. To do this kind of thing well, you need to have 2 traits. You need to be charismatic and you need to be funny. These are not traits the MIA possess, and so you're left with a terrible piece of WCW history. Chavo is Wine Time, The Wall is Jigsaw Jim Jughead, and Corporal Cajun doesn't even get introduced. The MIA then say Canada has never lost a war because they've never been in one, which simply isn't true. They say there's no war on drugs in Canada because Canadians just drink a lot of beer. And they say, unlike America, Canada isn't wrapped up in political sex scandals because all Canadian politicians are virgins, just like Lance Storm and you. Cajun then confirms he's supposed to be a Canadian moose. Jigsaw says he's the only moose around here. And Rection just gives up when he takes his wig off and he says Lance Storm started a war he can't win. Rection's going to face Storm and Jim Duggan in a 2-on-1 match at Halloween Havoc. He's going to take the US title, take back Major Guns, and apparently he's already took Team Canada's dignity thanks to this very promo. Brutal, absolutely brutal. On Raw, Triple H heard what Chris Benoit said, and the way Hunter sees it, Chris Benoit was proven wrong at No Mercy. Triple H gives Chris credit. He says Benoit is the best technical wrestler in the world, but the game still beat him, and that's all that matters. In regards to Stephanie getting involved, well, that's between Triple H and Stephanie, and it's none of our business. So yeah, way to dodge the question, my man. In the WWF title match main event, Steph got hurt, and now Hunter's going to hurt Kurt Angle. If Rock puts his hands on Stephanie again, then unfortunately, Triple H will hurt the People's Champ. While the APA is out of action, Bradshaw and Farouk have handed over their expensive office to Crash Holly. Young Elroy's very excited to get the keys to the kingdom, but he's quickly greeted by Test and Albert. They tell Crash that smoking will stunt his growth, and he gets thrown out of the office. The boys then take over and they try to come up with a new name for their protection agency. Tapa isn't gonna cut it. Chris Jericho, meanwhile, is trying to push his new Fozzy CD, and he says the multi-million selling band are going to appear at Sunday Night Heat. There's nothing more annoying than a CD pusher, guys. Don't do it. And then Jericho walks into Kane and the Big Red Machine gets a coffee that he didn't order. Don't stand there drinking coffee when a man's talking to you, Davey boy. Kane has experience with getting burned, and unfortunately for Y2J, Chris has a European Championship opportunity next against William Regal, while we learn about the test Kevin Nash has set up for Shawn Stasiak on Nitro. Sir William Regal calls these fans in Connecticut uncivilized. Connecticut produces a lot of firearms, and therefore Regal thinks the people in the arena don't possess social, cultural, or moral qualities. Chris Jericho, meanwhile, thinks Regal isn't even worth one of his world-famous tongue lashings, and he hits the ring to deliver a spinning wheel kick and a clothesline to the European champion. Y2J then runs shoulder first into the ring post, his shoulders causing him some problems ever since that cage match at No Mercy, and Regal capitalizes by slamming Jericho to the mat before taking Chris down with an arm wringer. A forearm shot puts Regal down, but Jericho hurts himself when trying another clothesline, and Regal gets a knee up when Chris goes for a lion salt. This is when Kane shows up, as expected, and the match gets thrown out after Jericho takes a chokeslam. I stand by this 100%. Turning Kane heel in the year 2000 was a dumb move. Nothing against Regal or Jericho, but Kane's now floating around going from one opponent to the next with absolutely no direction. On Nitro, Kevin Nash and the Thrillers are in the ring. Shawn Stasiak's going to find out what Nash's tough love's all about, but before that happens, Kev once again talks about Scott Hall. Kev says he and Hall walked back into WCW 4 years and 4 months ago and they had each other's backs. The Outsiders, as a shoot and a work, exemplify what a team's supposed to be. Hall and Nash are arguably the greatest tag team of all time, according to Kev, and Stasiak needs to learn a thing or two about being in a team. If Shawn wants to stand alone, then he's going to stand alone for his next match, and that match is against Bill Goldberg. Billy Boy makes his long entrance, Shawn pees himself a little, Bill finally makes it to the ring and the fight's on. It's a very abrupt fight as Goldberg no-sells a jumping back elbow and that's all she wrote. Spear, jackhammer, Goldberg is now 12-0 according to our commentators, and after the match Goldberg addresses Chronic. He says at Halloween Havoc it's going to be a, quote, pleasure to drill Chronic's asses into the mat because that's what Goldberg does. Alright Bill, a bit too much information. The two Bryans may have the numbers advantage, but at Halloween Havoc, both Clark and Adams are next. The WWF Champion's here at Raw and he's going to cut a promo. On Nitro, we've got Alex Wright versus Billy Kidman versus Mark Jindrak. Stephanie McMahon comes out to the stage. She announces that this is the very city where she was born, which gets around the boos. And she says it's time for these fans to welcome and celebrate the new WWF Champion. Kurt Angle makes his entrance and the arena gets filled with confetti and balloons. It's a big old party for Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle talks about his insanely successful rookie year in the WWF. A successful year for us nobodies, maybe spending more time with our families or maybe getting a little bump in our wages. For Kurt Angle though, these things suck and they mean absolutely nothing. What Kurt Angle achieved in 1 year is what many people could never achieve in their whole lives, and that's because Kurt Angle's a winner. Kurt could have called it a career after winning an Olympic gold medal, but he joined the WWF to make a name for himself. The crowd are chanting asshole at this point, by the way, but nothing Kurt's saying is actually wrong. He then starts talking a little nonsense though when he says tourism in Europe grew 38% after he won the European title. 2 months later he captured the IC title in this very city to become a Eurocontinental champion. Angle went on to win the 2000 King of the Ring, which saw crown and scepter sales jump up by 48%, but all this would lead to Angle's greatest accomplishment. Kurt took the past 12 months and he became the WWF champion, and that's what a successful year really looks like. Angle wrote a poem to mark the occasion. It's called What Makes a Man Super Great, and it goes like this. Greatness comes in many shapes, beyond red, white and blue. It's the addition of the colour gold. Yes indeed, it's true. We don't get to hear the rest of this little ditty because here comes Commissioner Foley. Mick says he told the boys to stay in the back. Mick understands this is a big moment and Foley says what Kurt accomplished in a year is truly inspirational. But Mick thought there was something missing last night after the main event. There was no celebratory hug between business partners Kurt and Steph. Foley's a good hugger himself and he gives Kurt what he's been missing, and then, while holding back tears, Foley says Kurt's going to defend his WWF title tonight on Raw. He's going to compete in a triple threat match, he's going to face Stephanie's husband Triple H, and he's going to face The Rock. Mick tells Kurt have a nice day before getting out of the ring, and Angle looks really angry. It looks like Kurt didn't want to be a fighting champion, but he's defending that belt tonight on Raw. So at Halloween Havoc, we're going to have the Boogie Knights, Rey Mysterio and Kidman, and the team of Jindrak and O'Haire facing off in a triple threat match. Disco grabs a microphone here on Nitro and he says there's a lot of talk in the back about something that could change WCW. Something's been going on and it's gotten to the point where even the office can't ignore it anymore and the boys want answers. There must be an announcement from the higher ups. What Disco's referring to here is the potential sale of the company, but he turns it around and he says what Disco and Alex really want to know is who let the dogs out. This gets a round of boos of course, and yeah, a fantastic waste of TV time here. So this is a three-way dance featuring three guys who are competing in the upcoming Halloween Havoc tag bout. That ball-bag Kidman tried to do the Saturday Night Fever dance and even Jindrak was embarrassed by this. So Kidman gets taken out and this gives Alex and Mark the opportunity to do a little work together. We see a German suplex from the German Bratwurst. Kidman wakes up and he goes after Alex. Jindrak helps Alex out with a fireman's carry neckbreaker, and Alex repays the favour with a delicious missile dropkick. After a brief scuffle on the outside involving all six men, Alex decides Jindrak's no use to him anymore, so he clotheslines him out of the ring, which leaves Kidman all alone to hit our hero with a Kid Crusher, renamed Humongous Sausage Crusher on this particular occasion. Our boy does the JOB, but never fear, he has a shot at redemption this Sunday at Halloween Havoc. Chyna's looking for Eddie Guerrero, but instead she finds Victoria and Big Bertha. The girls apologise for what happened, they are sorry for taking the Latino heat, but Chyna thanks these two for helping her see the light. As a matter of fact, Chyna wants to thank them properly. The door closes, not sure what happened here, but it's probably above the girls' pay grade. Whatever happened, Chyna leaves satisfied, so all's well that ends well. Taz and Raven then came out for a match against Too Cool, and I'm happy to report that Raven worked much better here in comparison to last week. Granted, the mystique of the Raven character has been totally removed, and it's kinda sad that the WWF couldn't do something a bit more special with him, but at least he's on TV, I guess. Taz stopped Scotty from performing the worm. Raven returned the favour moments later by stopping another worm attempt with an even flow DDT. Raven and Taz defeat Too Cool, and it is a step in the right direction here, so good stuff. Crowbar explains that Mike Awesome's completely changed his life. He and Mike have worn out the shaggin' wagon multiple times, and I do hope there were some women involved. That being said, Crowbar gets a surprise visit from Jimmy Hart, and no, Jimmy doesn't want to ride on the love bus. He tells Crowbar he's in a match right now, and Mr. Barr's going to face a returning Vampiro. On Raw, meanwhile, we've got Billy Gunn versus Venis. Surprisingly, this is the longest match WCW presents tonight, though in saying that, it takes Vampiro a very long time to make it to the ring. He takes so long that Crowbar starts taking bumps himself in the ring because no one's going to do it for him. Eventually the two meet at the entrance ramp where Vamp attacks with some nunchucks, and Tony Jabroni has the gall to say Vampiro's currently using a lethal weapon. Tony needs to realise that it's all about who controls those nunchucks, and Vampiro is no Steve Blackman. We get a long brawl around the ring before the two get inside where they share knife-edge chops. We see a reverse enziguri from Vampiro before the two head back outside, and Crowbar gets a chance to pull off his signature apron splash. Vamp takes a facebuster on top of a chair, he then takes a front suplex on top of the ring steps, which did look pretty sore, but Vamp fights back by putting those steps to good use as he shoves a steel chair in Crowbar's face. We head back into the ring where it starts to dawn on you that we could be witnessing one of the better Nitro matches of the whole year. The back and forth action's pretty good here, and everything they do is high risk, high reward, including this great top rope throw from Vampiro. A chair then gets used as Crowbar takes two shots to the head while Vampiro gets the chair launched at him, though Vamp takes the chair one more time and he kicks it in Crowbar's face. One nitpick you could mention here is the fact that there's not much selling going on, but it doesn't matter. It's pretty fun so far as Crowbar begins using the chair to his advantage, though the fun and games have to come to an end eventually as the two begin making their way up the ramp. As the two begin fighting at the Nitro Girls' dance cages, two random druids walk out carrying a pair of stacked tables. Crowbar gets distracted by these hooded dudes and Vampiro's able to grab him by the throat. Vampiro has a sick look in his eyes just before he sends his opponent through the tables with a chokeslam, and this is enough for Charles Robinson to call the match off. Really enjoyed this one, and I liked it even more because it was so unexpectedly good. Vampiro says this is all Mike Awesome's fault. It was Mike who put Vampiro on the bench, and so Vamp's coming after that 70s guy. Vampiro vs Awesome's going to happen at the pay-per-view this week, and Vamp says, not joking, be there or be square. It's kind of a downgrade switching over to Raw right now because the outcome of Val Venis vs Billy Gunn feels way too predictable. Eddie Guerrero came out to watch the action, Chyna's here at ringside too along with Steven Richards, so a lot of people keeping an eye on the action. Venis gets out of a sleeper with a blue thunder bomb, the two hit the mat after a double clothesline, Billy begins firing up with a stinger splash and BA pulls off a jackhammer before Stevie gets involved. Chyna doesn't even need to get in the ring, Billy takes both guys out with a double clothesline and he pins Venis after a famouser. Nothing wrong with the action in the ring here, Nitro's match was just better. What's more alarming is the fact that an alien watched this match from the audience and Steve Blackman is not booked on tonight's show. We're in deep trouble guys, send help. Stephanie McMahon's very torn tonight. She should be in Kurt's corner because he is the champ, yet she still wants to support her husband. Triple H tells Stephanie to never call Kurt Angle champ again, and this leads to Stephanie asking Triple H, once again, if she can be in his corner tonight. Hunter says no, they've been over this 1,000 times, and the answer remains the same. Edge and Christian were in the back, and Christian was trying to decide which sunglasses he should wear for their big tag team victory tonight. The boys were interrupted by pro wrestling legend and future Hall of Famer Pete Gas, and Pete informed the boys that Mick Foley wanted to see them. Edge said he'd take care of it, we go to commercial break, and when we come back, Edge finds his partner's been put through a table by the Dudley boys. Christian wants Edge to cancel their tag team title match. Edge says it's okay, it's only the Conquistadores so he can handle it all on his own. And that tag team title match is up next on Raw while Konnan challenges Shane Douglas to a fight. So Edge is being very brave and he's going to go for the tag team titles all on his own. He understands that the Conquistadores are legends, they're very much feared by other WWF tag teams, but Edge is going to bring the gold home tonight on Raw. Los Conquistadores come to the ring, Edge looks a bit perplexed for some reason and I don't blame him, these guys are pretty good and Edge better come up with a plan. Uno takes a shoulder block, again Edge looks a little puzzled. He then gets his confidence after delivering a drop toe hold, but he seems really annoyed when Uno tries a small package. This makes Edge see red and he goes on offense, and he can't believe it when Uno kicks out of his cover. The Conquistadors then beat Edge up in the corner and then the penny drops. We see poetry in motion, a twist of fate and a swanton bomb from these two frauds, and so that means the Hardy Boys must have jumped the real Conquistadors and they have screwed Edge out of the tag team titles. This is daylight robbery and it's totally uncalled for. Christian gets in the ring, the Conquistadors unmask at the top of the ramp, and Mick Foley comes out and he wonders what's going on. How could the Hardys be the Conquistadors if the Conquistadors wrestled the Hardys last night? Well, remember earlier on when Michael Cole interviewed Los Conquistadors? The cameras continued to roll and we see that Edge and Christian were conspiring with Uno and Doss. This proves absolutely nothing, may I add, and this is all camera trickery. It's AI, yeah, it's AI, so it doesn't matter. Mick reminds ENC that they weren't to receive another tag team title shot against the Hardys. The Conquistadors' victory last night does stand, but so does the Hardys' win tonight on Raw. So there you go, the dangers of AI, ladies and gents. It'll be the end of the world as we know it. On Nitro, Konnan tells Shane Douglas to come on out. K-Dog wants Shane in a one-on-one match right now, but Shane has his arm in a sling. Apparently he got injured on Thunder, but I smell shenanigans. Shane says he's hurt badly. Tori backs up Shane's story, of course. K-Dog says Tori looks worried right now because her man hasn't been servicing her, and I'm not kidding. He says Tori looks like she needs a facial. He actually said that. Konnan gets angry. He says he did talk to the coach and apparently Shane's injury is legitimate. So K-Dog goes to leave, which makes you wonder why he even called him out in the first place. But Shane tries to attack from behind and initially it doesn't go too well. Konnan's completely in control here and there's a terrible looking bump as Konnan tries to bring Shane down to the floor. Shane then gets put in a crucifix armbar as the beatdown continues, and we even see K-Dog's rolling clothesline. At some point something has to give, and so Tori hands Douglas his little chain. This chain, after all the damage Shane's taken, is enough to knock Konnan out. Shane covers Konnan after a franchiser, and Douglas beats Konnan just 6 days before Halloween Havoc. Tigers tries to get some revenge by attacking Tori, but Shane comes to the rescue. And yep, there you have it. Not great. Kurt Angle defends his WWF Championship against The Rock and Triple H in our Raw main event. On Nitro, it's Scotty Steiner versus Mike Awesome. No matter what comes of this Nitro match, it does give us one of the greatest Scott Steiner entrances of all time. Big Papa Pump comes to the ring with a fucking tagger, and no, I don't mean Medeja. Booker T must have got jealous because he showed up after Mike Awesome made his way to the ring, and our match begins on the entranceway once again as Booker joins the commentary table. Booker T and Stevie Ray are reunited. Mike delivers his big splash and Scotty kicks out at 2. Medeja lends a hand right here and she even gets invited into the ring where she kicks Awesome. On the outside, Mike takes a chair shot. Back in the ring, he takes the Steiner line and elbow drop combo, and Steiner shows his strength with an exploder suplex. Scott turns his attention to Booker. He spits in the champ's direction before focusing on Awesome again. Mike takes a chop in the corner before taking a belly to belly, but when the two head outside again, Mike's able to fight back with a clothesline. Mike goes upstairs again. We see his big diving clothesline. Scott again kicks out at 2, so Awesome performs a release German suplex. A corner clothesline leads to Mike screaming that it's time for the Awesome Bomb, but Medeja once again gets involved and this allows Scott to hit Awesome with his big lead pipe. Our match ends after a middle rope Samoan drop followed by a Steiner recliner. It makes sense for Scotty to destroy his opponent here, seeing as he's getting a title shot at Halloween Havoc. And again, we should take the small victories. At least there was no run-ins. Jeff Jarrett must have fallen asleep in the locker room. On Raw, Stephanie reminds Kurt Angle that he's the champion and therefore he should make the people wait before his entrance. This gives Rock and Triple H plenty of time to stare each other down in the ring, and when Kurt does finally show up, he feels a little left out. So Rock and Hunter smack Kurt in the face and the match begins. Kurt gets bounced around like a pinball as Rock and Hunter take turns at punching him in the face. Angle does manage to break the cycle with a clothesline to Hunter, but he ends up taking a clothesline too from The Rock. Hunter then gets knocked out of the ring when Angle performs an Irish whip, and so Kurt and Rock get to do a little work uninterrupted. Kurt takes control, that is, until Rocky performs a Samoan drop. Hunter isn't going to play favourites here. He low bridges Rock out of the ring and he kicks the crap out of Angle back in the ring. Neckbreaker from Hunter, German suplex from the champ, and Rock pulls Angle out of the ring for a little action on the outside. Triple H and Rock want to find out who can smack Angle's head off the announce table the hardest, and it's a tough call, honestly. Triple H gets a bit fed up, and so he sends Kurt over the table with a clothesline. The game heads back in the ring while Stephanie gets a bit too close to The Rock, and the game tries to ensure that no harm comes to his wife, but this doesn't work out too well. Not only that, Hunter takes a shot with the ring bell. So Triple H is out cold and Stephanie's very concerned. The Rock has the match won when he and Kurt get back in the ring, but Hebner's too busy checking on Hunter. Stephanie's managed to take the referee completely out of the match and Rock isn't happy. While Rock shows his displeasure, Kurt Angle manages to take control of the match and Rock takes a kicking while Triple H gets stretchered out of the arena. Stephanie heads up the ramp with Hunter while Angle delivers an Olympic slam. Hebner takes too long getting back in the ring and so Rock kicks out at 2. The game makes a comically heroic comeback as he gets off the stretcher and he rushes back down to the ring. You'd think he was playing possum, but that's not what they were going for here at all. Angle takes a running knee, Rock gets sent out of the ring. The WWF Champion needs a pedigree, but Rock breaks the cover from the outside. This gets a few boos, by the way, it's worth mentioning. Rock delivers a rock bottom to Kurt, Triple H breaks the cover. We've got all three men in the ring once again and Kurt gets the opportunity to hit both of his opponents with the WWF Championship belt. Our referee really hasn't done a great job tonight, but Angle has it won. Rikishi shows up to help his cousin. Kurt decides to get out of the ring and that's when Stone Cold Steve Austin shows up. Austin runs through Angle as he tries to get his hands on Rikishi. The rattlesnake lays it into the big goose as the crowd goes nuts. Kurt Angle isn't happy with Austin clotheslining him, so he goes after Stone Cold and this allows Rikishi to leave the ring. Angle pays for his crimes by taking a Stone Cold Stunner and Raw ends with Stone Cold celebrating in the ring. Lots of stories intertwining in this main event. Triple H and Steph, Rock and Rikishi, Austin and Rikishi, Angle and Steph, Rock and Hunter. One of those matches where you really need to know what's going on in the WWF to be able to grasp the match dynamics, and hey, this isn't a bad thing really, just something you need to be aware of. Vampiro vs Crowbar was a good match, but one good match doesn't make an entire show. Nitro wasn't terrible, and compared to the Aussie shows, it seems like WCW's back on form. But when that form can be best described as mediocre, then you can tell why Raw wins this week's Reliving the War. An episode of Raw just entertains me much more these days, and really I wish that wasn't the case. How sweet it would be to go back to 96 and 97. Raw's on 152 points, Nitro's on 82, and we have still got 24 ties. In the TV ratings, Raw gets a 5.5, Nitro gets a pretty desperate 2.2. Halloween Havoc's up next, folks. The number of pay-per-views I've got left to cover is quickly diminishing, so let's make the most of it. Halloween Havoc features Bill Goldberg vs Chronic, Mike Awesome vs Vampiro, Jeff Jarrett taking on Sting, and Booker T defending his world title against Big Papa Pump. Can WCW surprise us and give us a decent show? Well, the logo for the event leaves a lot to be desired, and the show's also sponsored by WCW Backstage Assault, so I'm gonna say no. But if you're anything like me and you strangely enjoy putting yourself through absolute hell for a little while, come on over and check it out. Support my efforts by checking out the video early on Patreon or via YouTube channel memberships. Thank you very much for watching Reliving the War, and I'll see you all next time. Please take care.